What's up, guys and gals? News for Normies is back on the air, and I've got my special guest, Wednesday host Dakota Coats, in the house.
Hey, good to see y'all again.
Now, for the regular listeners, you guys already heard me explain why I've been out for a minute, and my voice is a little better today. I only did 15 minutes yesterday because I couldn't stop coughing, and I don't know what it was.
Ooh.
I was just my throat. This has been the weirdest allergy season. I can't breathe some days, I can breathe other days. I don't even know how it's 85 degrees out right now, and we're almost in November.
Yeah, that's kind of throwing me. It's hot today.
It's still hot out. We're in the end of October. It'd be different if it was maybe the beginning of October. So this has been a kind of an unseasonably warm fall here in Texas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you ready to get to the depressing stuff? Otherwise known as the news?
Yeah. You could stay on the weather, but fuck it.
We're just going to dive right in. All right, diving in. Commences now.
What's first?
We're going to kick off with the student loan story. Now, did you ever take out a student loan?
I have student loans out right now.
Woof.
Actually, that are not paid off. So we'll throw this out there just so everyone knows. Now that everyone has this opinion of me as the Wednesday host that's vaguely educated on things, I'm a 1-year college washout. I burned right out of college. It did not suit me, just the learning style and stuff. I'm older now. I'm considering giving it another go. I'm unsure.
I don't want to discourage you, but I have tried to go back, and the old adage they say about the older you are, the harder it gets to go back is very true.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, it probably is. But yeah, no. I got loans as part of a scholarship package that the universities put together for kids now. Once you fill it out and hop on their website, they do a lot of that legwork for you. If you want good scholarships, you got to do that on your own. But whether you get them or not, they'll make sure the rest of your package is filled in with loans. So I had a bunch of loans that I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a programming student. This is most definitely what I want to do for the rest of my life, even though I know very little about it. Let's rock and roll. And that didn't work out at all. Surprise.
Yeah, do you think it's because you got into something thinking that's what you wanted to do and then realized you didn't want to do that, and then,
I think it was multiple factors. For instance, I definitely had some stuff happen before I went to college that threw me towards and eventually into a pretty dark depression, which is not good for anything. Also, I went to college with the intention of I want to study coding. I want to code, right? And I had already spent my high school years knocking out what I had thought were core curricula. You know what I mean? I had college English credit. I had half credit for Gov and a half credit for history. You know what I mean? And so I could go straight to what I wanted to do.
The old lie they tell you, right? To take all these extra classes in high school, and then they turn out they don't count for anything.
Yeah,
I got suckered by that.
They don't count for anything, or you didn't need them, or you didn't fucking need them. The only thing that worked in my favor, the one thing, was I did a dual credit Spanish course, and in engineering, because you're learning another language anyway, you only need one full credit of a language other than English. So that was nice. I didn't have to take any Spanish courses. I wish I had, because I'd know better than the bare bones Spanglish I know now.
Oh, mames way.
Pequito.
Yeah. I see that. I asked you because my reasonings for dropping out, I guess, a little different. But I also quit, and I was only man, I didn't need very many classes left, dude. I probably needed maybe 3 classes or something. And I just, I didn't find any of it to be incredibly useful at all. And I had gotten through all of the classes you could take for cheap. So then, I paid as I went. So I went the community college route and then jumped to university and took a class or two and paid the full cost.
Yeah.
And it came to the decision of am I going to finish this, or because if I am, I'm gonna have to take out the loans. Yeah. And me, I read my paperwork, and I grew up poor as dirt. So when I read the terms, I was like, this is insane. How am I gonna pay for this? And so I was like, see myself paying for this. I told my counselor, and my counselor was like, "Oh, we don't pay for it until you get out of school." And I'm like, "Well, I don't see myself paying for it then either." You know,
Right?
like, this is more than my car payment. Like, this is absurd.
They want huge numbers out of people.
Yeah, so let's get on to this news story then. The New Jersey Attorney General files suit accusing student loan giant Navient of unconscionable practices. Now, you know what else is unconscionable is the fact that you pay so much money to go to school they don't teach you about anything about life. Like, there should be a class for how finance works, how loans work. Or, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Stuff like that. Because people come out of school so in debt, they can't even breathe.
Absolutely. So, I'm a big advocate for, like, a life course for at least a semester. Excuse me. Drink the water wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'm stupid. In high school. Because in college, technically, those courses are available. They're part of finance majors, you know. The like higher end structuring of loans and stuff like that, which you don't need in what the course that I would be advocating for, right? Which is just like the bare bones basics. You know, look at your APRs, your annual percentage rates. Look at your yearly total. Look at how it's all going to stack up. Look if you have like renegotiation options down the road. You know what I mean? Where you can like, compact and crunch it.
Teach you about the depreciation of cars when you buy them brand new.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of mistakes people make financially. It's ridiculous, but. What I was saying was this would be, like, our generation, sadly, even mine does this. I see it all the time. Mm-hmm. They use adulting for just basic stuff. Oh, I'm adulting today. I can't believe I figured out how to change a tire or something, like, ridiculously simple. Or, you know what I mean? But, like, they do it for everything. And I'm just like, oh, my God, man. None of y'all have any life skills. Like, no actual living life skills.
I think that's part of why they use it that way. That's part of like adulting is like the crap that kind of sucks. But it has to be done. It's that routine shit you got to do, like oil change. That's adulting. At least if you do it yourself. I think if you go to a place, you're really, just, you know, you're kind of checking out and checking back in for a second. But you know, however your shit gets done, you know, adulting, it's because a lot of us weren't taught any of it. Like, my parents did teach me how to do stuff like change my oil, change a tire, like, look at my bank balance. Not that I picked that habit up until I was in my 20s, but they did teach me to do it. But for the most part, like, people I know don't know these things. No one has taken the time to teach them. And it's funny because, like, some of their parents are the type of people who get really, I guess, up in arms. I hate to say offended, triggered, but they don't like the idea of life skills courses in schools because they think very firmly that they should be learned through life. That's why they're life skills. Neglecting the fact, of course, that when they were in school, they had home economics and other courses that we literally don't have.
And shop.
That literally teach you how to do these things, right?
Correct.
So, you know, double standards, whatever.
I think that, man, now I don't have kids, so I guess I'm not the expert on this topic of parenting, but, like, if I had one, there is no way in hell they would make it to the age of 18 without, like, ticking off every box of all the stuff I would have avoided. And I would teach them these lessons and then let life dictate how successful they are in these lessons. So that even though you teach somebody to change a tire doesn't mean they're not going to screw it up the first time they do it. But at least give them the basic, you know, mechanisms and concepts there before you just throw them out there and say, well, life's going to teach you. Like, that's so ignorant to me, but what do I know? Yeah, anyways.
No, I agree.
The lawsuit filed in the Superior Court in Essex County argues that Navient is engaged in unconscionable commercial practices, deceptive conduct, and misrepresentations when servicing thousands of New Jersey consumers' student loans. The lawsuit also states that Navient has violated New Jersey consumer protection laws. Woo!
Ooh.
Higher education should be a pathway to success, not a road to financial ruin, Gruhl said in a press release. Navient denies the allegations and insisted it is helping student borrowers, not taking advantage of them. Not only these recycled, baseless allegations, Navient has consistently delivered excellent service to student loan borrowers, helping millions of people realize the benefits of higher education and successfully pay off their loans. Navient spokesperson Paul Hartwick told Yahoo Finance in a statement. Yeah.
I don't know.
This doesn't sound like a baseless accusation, and considering what I've seen student loan people do to my friends, I'm not on your side, pal. Not on your side there,
I
buddy.
think I
You
think
not
it was
my
a
guy.
massive misstep to say recycled baseless. So you mean this has happened repeatedly, so often that you would categorize it this way,
So
almost like
a
enough
pattern's
people.
being established, if you will.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it's like we're delivering an excellent service to borrowers by helping them go to school, and it says paying off their loans. Uh, First off, I want to call bullshit. I bet if you looked at the numbers, like paid off loans versus like loans remained open, and also if you looked at like loan payoff versus loan takeout, on the first, you're going to find that there is an absolutely disproportionate number of loans that remain open for excessive periods of time because people cannot afford to pay them off when they get out of school. And then on the second figure, I bet you would see massive, massive disparities between what you took out and what you paid. Because I know what I took out, and I know what they're already saying I owe them, and it's already more than double. It's been a few years on Educate because like I wasn't making enough to pay that and live my
I'm
life.
like, wait, what? How's it doubled? Is this not I thought it was interest, right? Is it? Wait,
Yeah.
Is it like so? What do you call it? House mortgage interest doesn't work like normal interest. In fact, it's all front loaded. So if you pay on your principal more your first couple of years owning a house, you knock your principal way down because there's not enough interest banging on it at the start.
Yeah.
Is it like that?
It seems
Because that
to be
sucks.
It seems to be like that.
Woof.
And another thing is like I went through periods of time where I was making little and in a panic in my life and not handling things well. So I was getting my loans deferred. And my loans would sit and not be delinquent, which was good. But they would also just sit and accrue. And the thing about student loans is that they have kind of higher percentage rates. They're not like loan shark level, depending on how you define loan shark. I personally think student loan centers are mostly loan sharks, just in nicer suits. But
they're kind of like Army recruitment officers.
Hey, you know what? That's fair. That reminds me of a story about the military esports that I heard about recently. But I'll move from that. With these loan rates, the idea is, look, they're higher numbered, but they're not active. They're not accruing interest while you're in school. So as long as you're attending a standard semester or the summer sims, those count too, it's not accruing interest. So if I, up to now, had been in school for the specified amount of time in my loan, which was a minimum of 12 hours, which is like 3 or 4 classes, depending, I would only owe what I had taken out. Of course, that would be including all of the additional loans I'd have taken out to continue going to school, because it's not like my second and third year of college I'm now making enough money to not take loans out to attend school. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
And I now would have multiple higher percentage loans out, or alternatively, depending on, because Navient's one of those who kind of will like put all your loans together, I would have one larger end high percentage loan that's been sitting on freeze, and as soon as college is done, right, as soon as I get my degree and I'm not going back, right, so we'll say I went all the way to the master's,
right.
8 years worth of compounding loans, and then once I'm out, the interest rate turns on after, depending on the arrangement, it can start after the first 30 days because you need a month out to like get a job, or it can start at the first 90 because some of them recognize that like it's not easy to get a job straight out of college. But generally speaking, yeah, within the first few months, it'll kick on, and once it kicks on, it kicks off. And you've got to handle it, or you're done. Yeah.
Well, they go on to say, Mr. Hartwick here, the Navient spokesperson, as a servicer for the federal government, we have led enrollment in affordable payment plans and driven down default rates. In fact, over half of the loan portfolio we service is enrolled in income-driven repayment, Hartwick said.
Oh, man.
Now here comes the numbers.
So that means over half of the people who took loans out with them don't make enough to pay off what the standard for the loan would be.
Yeah, well, our educational system is wildly overblown now. It is wild.
Yeah,
it's out of control what they're charging. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree.
As of June, almost 170,000 borrowers in the state of New Jersey had $7 billion of their federal student loan debt serviced by Navient. The company also handles private student loans for New Jersey borrowers. Nationally, 44 million borrowers owe $1.54 trillion in student loan debt, according to the New York Fed.
That's a huge number.
Gruhl said that even before the coronavirus pandemic, borrowers are struggling with their student loans because their loan servicers put corporate profits above the borrower's best interests. By suing the loan servicer, we are taking action to hold one of the country's largest student loan servicers accountable for abuses that made New Jersey borrowers worse off. The case follows an investigation by the state's Division of Consumer Affairs. This sounds pretty official, man. The lawsuit stated that the division has received directly and indirectly approximately 1,000 consumer complaints from New Jersey borrowers regarding Navient's business practices related to the servicing of student loans. They've got a nice little graph there. Look at that. From 2006 to 2020, in 14 years, our debt has gone up $1.2 trillion. Right?
Much. And I'll say this, as somebody who's been on this end of the whole forbearance steering, that's very much what they want. They're super quick to be like, hey, this is your payment, this when it's due, the next payment will be due this time. Don't forget, if those numbers are scary, we have forbearance.
Borrowers complained of being steered into forbearance instead of income-driven repayment plans. Unsealed court documents from last October reveal the same behavior at the national level. Forbearance was being pushed internally as an optimal solution. A senior director at Sallie Mae, Navient's former parent company, wrote in a 2010 internal memo. You nailed it. You nailed it before we even got to the next paragraph.
Yeah.
They also complained of not being informed of the right deadline to complete annual paperwork to stay on those repayment plans, of facing major hurdles to have loan co-signers released from a loan, and also being given wrong information about how much to pay to have a loan exit delinquency status. Wow. Can you imagine being given the wrong payoff? That's brutal.
I can.
You don't have to imagine too hard, do you? No, ladies and gentlemen out there listening, I mean, you need to really, really advise your kids before this gets to be, I don't know. I can't tell parents to parent.
Here's what I would say, right? Because a big issue that I've seen with this is, like, the further we go, the more years pass, the more disconnected parents are from their children's education, right? The less they seem to know about what's going on. I'm not even going to dive into Common Core math. I hate it. But parents just don't know what's happening. And so when it comes to college, they're just like, oh, well, I sure don't know what's happening there. I had trouble when you got into high school. So they just
I feel you.
Out.
And I feel like that's a generalization of Americans, but it's not wrong. I mean, a lot of Americans really don't want to think too much.
Sure, yeah. And not just that, even when they do think, when they're active, they find pushback because the systems have changed so much from what they were taught. But what I would say is this: take your kids to, like, an H&R Block, whoever the hell does your taxes. Be like, hey, look, I want you to sit and help them figure out this loan situation so they know if they want this loan or not. Most of them will do it. If you don't have one, hit up H&R Block. H&R Block's really big on, like, they have other services.
And just so y'all know, H&R Block does not endorse and or advertise on this show.
No. Just a big common name.
I got a lot of crap. But you bring up Common Core, it's fun. I got a lot of crap for a Facebook post I made the other day that was about people not parenting their kids and not being, able to do their homework with them. And I was like, I can't believe how many parents are, like, not doing their homework with their kids. Now, mind you, growing up, my parents did not do my homework with me at all. Sure. But they tried. My mom actually tried a couple of times to sit down with me, and she was like, I'm not, like, she just gave up. She's like, I'm not from this country. I was in, like, advanced level classes for everything, dude, from math to literature to, not that I'm some smart guy, but you know what I'm saying? And so, like, they couldn't touch it. And I remember my dad sitting down with me once to try and get me doing the math homework because they hated, like, my parents tried so hard to make me, like, an orderly individual because they hated that I was such a, like, I'd come home and just go right to doing whatever the hell I wanted to do. And they'd be like, do your homework right away. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then they hated that at the very end of the night, I could do all my homework in 10 minutes and still pass. And to them, they felt like I wasn't putting enough work in or taking my classes seriously, which I wasn't because my classes were a joke to me. Like, I was so far ahead. And my parents actually held me back. I was supposed to get 2 grade advancements, so I could have been out of high school a lot faster, man. And they just would not do it. They're like, no, we don't want you to be, in college. You're 17 or something. That's too weird. Blah blah blah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But I know that if I personally had the responsibility of a kid, dude, I'm sitting down. If I have to learn a new math system, then I'm going to sit down and learn a new math system. I'll learn it with them. Whatever you got to do to make sure your kid has the ability to go out and compete in the world.
So let me pose this question. Well, before I do, what do you know about Common Core? Since we're talking about this,
I watched like a brief demonstration.
Yeah. So in my opinion, Common Core is just a bad way to do math.
It depends on why you're doing it that way.
I guess it depends on why. I guess because of my experience with like STEM fields, I just find it like really fruitless.
I understand. Okay, so did you ever take like engineering in college?
Yeah, I took. I mean, the thing is that's diversified. You know what I mean? Like engineering's broad now, so it kind of depends on what you mean.
Well, I took electrical engineering.
Coding 1.
You took which one?
Like coding 1, basically.
Oh yeah. It's computer sciences. No, I'm talking about actual engineering, like either architecture or electrical engineering or something like that, because there's a ton of math involved. And that's why I ended up washing out, because I just didn't like doing the math.
Yeah.
So when you have to at some point know like trig and stuff to keep getting through these classes.
Yeah, you have to go all the way up through the mother of math for coding too, which is quadratic equations and something else.
So mind you,
it's like a lengthy name.
I'm going to give an opinion based on just what I know about different maths, and then the brief demonstration I saw at Common Core. And this could be way off base, but this is how I see it. So every different math is a different language that speaks the same language. It's the same way to communicate, if you will. Yeah. So if you do your basic math, I mean, that works for simple stuff like how many apples am I holding? But that basic math doesn't work for like how do we get a ship into outer space? So when I look at Common Core, I look at it as it's a quicker way when you're doing massive numbers. If you're doing big numbers, Common Core is actually faster than the regular way. So if you're trying to raise a generation that can handle bigger and bigger numbers and algorithms, then I think instilling the base of Common Core will help them grasp these bigger numbers later on down the line. Is it what everyone needs? Probably not. But then again, isn't it? Because aren't all of our manufacturing jobs disappearing? Robots being created to take them over? Aren't everybody's the whole thing that pissed off Twitter a couple of years ago was learn to code. So if that is our future, then Common Core may be the future of how you get kids to understand these vastly, wildly different mathematical principles that we're going to need to move forward technologically.
I guess I just don't see that. I would want to. Maybe I need to watch what you watched. My experience with Common Core is watching all of the back and forth on homework, looking at the homework, looking at where the teachers write out and explain the math next to it, looking at the corrections.
But again, I don't think Common Core works for basic problems. Yeah, it's a joke. It takes way too long.
I feel like if it doesn't work on basic math, outside of niche examples, because math has some pretty weird fields. Like math can get really out there.
Yes, it can.
One of my math teachers when I was in college was a mathematician. And he used to talk, like, in his free time, he would tell us about really weird fields of math that he had checked out this week. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that it couldn't work for, like, certain niche things. It's a matter of basic math is the building block that all further math is built on. All math can be boiled back down to a basic math function.
Exactly. And that's why I feel like... That's why I feel like they're pushing the kids onto this new basic math, because they expect that within 50 years, the kind of math these kids are going to need to be able to do at work is going to be exponentially greater than the kind of math we're doing at work.
Right. My issue with that is I think it's a bad foundation. I don't think it's good to teach kids to think in ways of like, this equation works, there's just a remainder. Like, the old way had remainders, but the old way also taught you to work through the remainder. Because the thing is, percentages, fractions, portions, all of these sections of the whole are so applicative to everything else as soon as you start getting out of basic math.
Because the old way was based on actual solid objects in the world. You use old math to count apples in your hand.
You can use old math to figure out like how much
takes longer
for a resistor.
If you're going to write an algorithm, it's going to take a lot longer. That's all I'm saying. The higher the numbers get...
I don't see algorithms being faster just because you're writing more, like, less numbers down in total. Because I mean, that's like doing math in
No,
binary.
you would work faster. I'm not saying the computer would. You would, because you can read the numbers and break them down faster.
I don't know if that's true.
I believe it is. I think I even
would
glanced past a video where they said, like, once you get to bigger numbers, Common Core is infinitely faster than the regular way. So, like, that's why I think they're giving it to them. But we've digressed onto a whole other thing.
It's like counting in binary, because I can count to 1024 on 10 fingers because I can count in binary. It doesn't mean it's necessarily better, you know what I mean? Just because I memorized, like, base 2 to the 10th power.
We'll have to find out, won't we? We don't know what kind of. We don't know what kind of.
We
well, because see,
we're
we're applying our nowadays math problems to a way of doing problems for the future. Mm-hmm. So of course we think it's ridiculous because we're like, this is ridiculous. I can't solve anything with this right now. But somebody 50 years from now might be like, I can't believe they used to solve things like that. How did they get by without Common Core? Because the math problems they're solving in those days are going to be way different than the ones we're solving now. I mean, do you know what year it was 50 years ago? It was 1970, bro.
Yeah.
We didn't even have cell phones. Like, the math you needed then was minuscule.
The math you might have needed, like, for certain things in life might have been minuscule, but it was the exact same math. It didn't change. I guess that's my hugest problem. Numbers don't change. That was, like, the big thing for math. That's why I was a math kid. I competed in math events on the weekends. I dedicated my academic life to math.
Numbers don't change, but the way to get answers solved do.
The way to get answers is always amorphous and adaptable to the problem. I'm with that. I genuinely feel like a Common Core is something that doesn't need to be implemented in elementary school. You know what I mean? Maybe it's better for higher end math. Maybe it is the crown jewel of logistics, right? I'm not a logistic guy.
All right, so let me ask you this. So, because screw it, we're already digressing. Let's just go all the way in. Let's just go all the way in with no lube.
Yeah.
So, I can't believe we've already done 30 minutes, too. Didn't get past one story. So, let me ask you this. You say it's not good to give these kids this base. Common Core is their base. But if your goal is to get a generation of kids able to do super high-level math that this Common Core is going to be the basis of, then why wouldn't you go ahead and start them there while they're young and adaptable?
So I would rebut that with this.
Like, where do you see us as human beings being in 50 years?
The plumber doesn't need to be able to do quantum mechanics.
What if he needs to because he has to fix the robot plumber because there are no more plumbers?
If we're talking about a scenario where the jobs are increasingly of a narrower and narrower scope with higher and higher thresholds of skill, there's no amount of teaching everyone the same stuff that will keep everyone employed. It's literally infeasible.
But that's a different conversation. This isn't about getting everybody employed. This is about giving everybody...
I got you. It's together. Therefore, it would be not only a waste of resources, but also, frankly, extremely dishonest to the children you're teaching, to prepare all of them for this extremely narrow field with the knowledge that probably 80% of them won't be able to be employed for the sheer fact that the majority of the population could not be employed in that society.
But that's what you're overlooking about what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're doing it to get them prepared for this one narrow field. I'm saying that it's going to seep into every field.
Right.
And once it's into every field, like we've already seeped technology into every field. You know, like my grandparents can't send an email.
Yeah.
But no matter what job you have nowadays, you got to be able to send an email. That's the correlation I'm making here. Is that I feel like Common Core might become like the future's email. If you don't know it, you're not going to be able to succeed at any job, no matter what job it is. Because you're going to have to deal with numbers. Everything we do is technology-based and getting worse. So
that's getting into like limiting filters, right? Like certain like adaptive, like if you can't follow this far, you don't make it. That's how
we exist right now.
Push Common Core to that point. Then what happens when Common Core doesn't work? Where's the foundation? What happens when you need that lower base level of math to fix something down the line? What happens if we're all dead when we find out that's the problem?
That's the thing, though, is that we have no choice. We're progressing too fast.
It just.
I mean, dude, I can't valet my car sometimes because it's a stick shift and no one can drive it.
Yeah.
Like that's a skill that was widely spread 20 years ago. So
Sure.
that's the thing.
But the difference between the stick shift and math is that the stick shift is a single modular piece of an overall system which is constantly adapting and changing. Math is not something that's constantly adapting and changing at the base level, right? Cars are, engines change. We move from
Wait,
one
are you
type of
saying
engine
that
to
somebody
another
can't?
type of engine.
Are you saying somebody can't understand 1 + 1 = 2 if they're taught Common Core?
I think if you're taught Common Core and you're taught that 8 divided by 3 is 3 or 2 with nothing else, but you also have 2 left over that you don't do anything with or write down, that you're creating flawed systems that are going to break people's ability to critically think about hardline things that involve numbers. I think when you start doing stuff like factoring out the way that we deal with offshoots, remainders, percentages, fractions, portions of a whole, when you stop thinking of them as like genuine solid pieces and you start looking at them as these expendable abstracts that you don't have to deal with for the most part, that you create a problem in which people are making too many assumptions inside of their math. We've seen
That's an
what
interesting
happens.
perspective.
And for the record, I'm not saying that I'm going to use a bit of a facetious example, right, to highlight the problems that happen when we do this in math. I'm doing this consciously because while I think it would be stopped before it got that far, we've seen where it hasn't. So Apollo, I believe it was 8, that exploded in atmosphere. The reason that it exploded in atmosphere is because one of the heat tiles was not properly resistant to the temperature.
Right.
And it cracked on the way out. And that crack let the heat get into the fuel seal, which let it hit the tanks, which, turned the whole thing into a fireball.
Right.
And this is because of a misplacement of a single decimal point. So this is well beyond less than the whole.
Right.
This is way, way out less than the whole.
Right.
And this could have been a very honest mistake. There are people who go back and forth about, maybe it was, I don't care. Mistakes like this happen in math. There's a reason we do peer review, right? Look at Stephen Hawking's black hole theory. There were missed decimal carries that ruined that paper, right? When you're doing math in the Common Core fashion, which involves, at least at the base levels that I've seen, which is elementary school, which is what I care about, they're basically weighing remainders in order to quicker teach certain types of skills in regards to multiplication and division. I would hope with revisions down the line, but I've seen no evidence to lead me to believe so. But I'm open to being taught more about Common Core, right? I've learned some just talking to you, right? Perhaps it is better for dealing with large numbers. I think teaching elementary school kids how to deal with really large numbers by initially disregarding factual issues about math, portions of the whole, that you're going to create kids who think that they know something about something, and they are hurting themselves and everyone around them because they're using it wrong.
I agree,
right?
if that's indeed the way they're teaching them. If they're teaching them just to ignore stuff and throw it away, I don't believe that they're teaching them to ignore it or throw it away. If they're aware that it's there, then that's one thing. But if they are like, yeah, there's 2 remainders, don't worry about it, just don't even think about it, then that's definitely a different way, and I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But I also think that this isn't... to go back to your Apollo analogy, that was, humans doing math, but with the aid of, somewhat efficient computers, right? So the thing is that we talked to our tools one way because our tools were only capable of understanding one speech because that's all our tools were capable of. The tools we invent now are far superior than the tools we had then, and we talk to them in a different way.
So when it comes to
the tools we invent in the future are probably going to require yet another language. So I'm suspicious that this Common Core thing really is because scientists think we're going to be on this path of AI. We're going to need a certain way to talk to our tools, if you will.
I think it's definitely possible. But while we're on that subject, actually, so the way we talk to our tools, right, it seems like it's getting more and more diverse every year, right? There's all these codes, Python, C, C++, C#, Excel, that's not a fucking, HTML is what I meant. There's also like really crazy ones out there, like Alien. There's one called Brainfuck that only has 4 operators, and it's the ways that you pattern those operators that create the over like 50 variants that are needed to make an actual workable programming language, right? But here's the thing: every language we use is an interface. It's not the computer.
Right.
The computer speaks in assembler. All computers have one language. That's what the compiler does, is convert whatever language you're using to computer speak. We are refusing to learn assembler because assembler is incredibly difficult. So we keep making these interfaces where somebody figures out how to interact with assembler, and then they make a new interface. And like, this isn't to like disparage Python or anything, or C#. There
Right.
are lots of great coding languages that are super useful because they aren't as limited as assembler. Because assembler is very limiting because you have to stick to the rules. That's how computers operate. And you're talking to computers on an operational level.
That's how they operate now.
Well, so
how would a quantum computer operate?
That's a great question. How would you run a program on a computer that you don't run programs on? Like, how familiar are you with like quantum computing?
I've read a couple of articles on it just to get a basic grasp of it, I guess you would say. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're not speaking in a regular 1-2 language on-off, and you're speaking in a whole other language, then that's where maybe this would come in. And again, I'm just speculating like you are. I don't really know a lot about Common Core. It just strikes me as a whole different... It strikes me as, yes, like you were saying, it's a faster way to talk to the assembler, and I feel like that's going to keep on keeping on. But it's also a slightly different way of talking. I'm wondering if it's because they know that these assemblers will be outdated in like 20 years. Who knows what kind of computers we'll have then?
So the thing is, over the course of the past, oh dear God, 60 years? When the first
when you get into Turing's law?
Was that 1960s?
Yeah. I think it was 40s actually, but 60s when they had the first big working prototype.
Yeah. Well, we'll say 60s because round numbers, and people know that. Compute assemblers never changed. The thing with computers, and the thing when you start getting into really high-end tech or high-end medicine or high-end biology, is that you start to learn that the we know how it works is really a lot more of we know how to work with it.
Yeah.
So take anesthesia for the record.
That's an engineering saying right there.
Yeah. We don't know how it works. We don't know how to work with it.
We don't work with it.
Yeah. So like anesthesia, we know what happens after. You normally don't remember. You couldn't move, and stuff's done. We're not 100% on what happens during. There's the giving it to you. There's the paralysis ensues, and then there's this big gray area in the middle. The people who have like anesthesia resistances where like they stay awake during surgeries and stuff, we don't know if that's not what we all experience, and the only thing that anesthetics actually give us is the amnesiac at the end where we don't remember. Woof. And we don't have a really good way to study it. When it comes to computers,
what a horrifying thing to say.
Yeah, it's a terrible, awful fact that.
Have you ever been under? Have you been under anesthesia?
Yeah, I actually had a pretty serious jaw surgery when I was in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went under, and I remember I came up, and the first thing I did, and it wasn't conscious, right? I didn't get to choose. It's like as my eyes opened, my entire body trauma reacted. Tears, gasping, I could not breathe. I curled like in my seat. I went from like mostly reclined to like balanced on my ass in the middle of this chair. And like it took me a minute to figure out where I was, and I was doing that through this like panic response.
Woof.
And so legitimately what I was told is, it's okay. This is more common than you think. It just happens. That's the explanation. It just happens. You underwent something the body considered traumatic, and for whatever reason it knows it was traumatized, and so you react this way.
Well, it makes you wonder about our body's ability to remember pain, if you will. Because we already have reactions against it. I mean, once you've been hit, somebody swings at you, you already duck back, so... That's a very creepy way to end the show.
Your neurons are aware of previous stimuli, and the brain has ways to coordinate, like your intuition, right? Like so, like the whole concept of like a spidey sense, right?
You got 20 seconds.
Like everyone has a really 12 seconds. I don't know. Don't wake up in the middle of surgery, guys. Don't do it. That's what I got.
Oh man, it's been good to be back with you, dude.
I'm sorry we didn't get. I was actually excited about getting.
Yeah, we didn't get to any of the other topics. Well, you guys know what to do: like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can catch us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Listen Notes, and Amazon Prime Music and Podcasts. because I guess that's what they're calling it now, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, don't forget, hit that subscribe button and tell us what you think about Common Core down below.